Hello, this is Ken Bennett, and I'm with the National Association of Black and White Men Together. And today I want to talk about a certain type of racism, and that's in the workplace. And more specifically, talk about Tesla and racism. Several racist slurs allegedly were directed at Black workers at the Tesla's California plant, according to a lawsuit filed against the company. A single mother was excited to land the job at Tesla. About 3 years in, she was fired, she said, after complaining that Black workers were frequently called the N-word on the assembly line. She soon found herself and other Black workers assigned to the most arduous tasks in the corner of the factory, and the co-workers called it, quote, the plantation. An Army veteran was promoted to a fleet manager job. He said he was fired after he complained to his boss, and his boss apparently called him and his two Black co-workers, quote, monkeys. These three Black former employees described how jobs at the pioneering automaker evolved into personal nightmares due to a pattern of rampant racism and harassment at Tesla's California factory. This led to a lawsuit filed by the California Department on behalf of more than 4,000 current and former Black workers at the world's most valuable car company, the largest racial discrimination suit ever brought by the California state by the number of workers impacted. The three former employees describe a workplace where racist slurs in English and Spanish were often aimed at Black employees by co-workers and supervisors, as they alleged in the lawsuit. They say Tesla segregated Black workers into separate areas, gave them the hardest tasks, and routinely denied them promotion. And they allege that when they informed the company about racist treatment, their complaints went ignored or they were fired. Tesla disputed the former employee's account, stating that the three workers did not complain to the company about racism, that any discipline they received was a result of their own workplace behavior. I tell you. Quote, race plays no role in any of the Tesla's work assignments, promotions, pay, or discipline, attorneys for the company said in a statement, and went on to say Tesla prohibits discrimination in any form. One worker, Monica Chapman, landed a job at Tesla in late 2016. She drove a cart and later a forklift on the night shift, hauling parts to assembly lines. African-American workers were routinely assigned the hardest task, Chapman said. Quote, the work nobody wanted to do. That was more wear and tear on the body. She said, quote, I was a skinny 115 pounds. And she recalled that was told to do a four-man job by myself. Her words were, quote, do the job or lose your job, they told her. She would hear Latino and white workers and their supervisors casually refer to Black workers with the N-word. Quote, you would hear N this and N that, she said. And that was the norm. It was, quote, Tesla's tradition. Tesla's chief executive, Elon Musk, would come through the front of the factory with his entourage, Chapman said, and, quote, they didn't want the blackface up there, she said, adding that Latino colleagues were left up front while Black workers were moved to the back. Lawrence, Oregon, Chapman's attorney in a class action suit against Tesla, said the company's allegations are, quote, the same tactic it had used to counter other complaints by Black workers. For example, in October, a February jury awarded a worker $137 million after finding the company turned a blind eye to racial taunts and offensive graffiti. Next, in 2017, Kimberly Rumby said she wanted a more stable job. So Tesla hired her as a materials handler, hoisting 40-pound packages of auto parts onto forklifts and carts and driving them through the factory to the assembly lines. The job entailed 6 or 7 days a week with 12-hour shifts and overtime that was mandatory. Within weeks, she said to 2 young Latino co-workers who began harassing her with homophobic slurs after she mentioned she had a wife. She said Black workers at the company's California plant were segregated into a crowded corner of the factory without air conditioning. Men would laugh at her and regularly refer to Black workers with racist slurs, she said. When she objected, they would say, "Shut up, N." She complained to her white supervisor and also to HR, but no follow-up. Tesla said Romney never complained about racial slurs or discrimination. In March, after Romney had suggested safety improvements on forklift routines that were then implemented, she was honored with a performance award certificate at a staff recognition luncheon. She said that only made coworkers jealous and the harassment escalated. After her complaints to HR, Romney said she was shifted to a more strenuous route where she had to lift as many as 100 heavy packages a day without help. Non-Black workers on that route routinely worked in pairs, she said. On the assembly line, Black workers were given the most arduous tasks, such as installing dashboards, she said. When, as a result, Black workers caused bottlenecks or mistakes, Romney would overhear supervisors said, "Them N over there were lazy, but they were working as hard as anyone," she said. She reported the slur in her complaint to the state. Workers called Tesla's factory the plantation and the slave ship, not just for the brutal work pace everyone experienced, but especially because Black workers were routinely segregated into a corner of the factory that lacked air conditioning, and work conditions were mostly crowded, Romney said. In March 2019, she quit. Quote, "I felt like I was forced out," she said. Her attorney said she contested Tesla's allegation about her behavior and did so in a March 2018 complaint, where she wrote that she only stood up for herself to be left alone. A third worker, Nigel Jones, was 22 when he started working at Tesla. His first job was simple: keep tanks on forklifts filled with distilled water so they didn't overheat. At first, he said, "I loved working there. I'm a people person. I love talking to people, and our job was essential because if the equipment goes down, the factory's not running." He did pick up some onerous overtones as he moved around the factory, however. He overheard white supervisors berate Black, Asian, and Latino workers, often directing the N-word at Black employees. He said things like, "Tell that N to get over here." When he asked fellow Black workers about it, they told him to think twice about complaining because he had been told those who had taken similar complaints to human resources wound up out of the job. He liked his boss at the time. The money was good, and I've always been the type who says, "Okay, let just happen. Let it go. Keep the positive vibes." He was promoted to fleet manager in charge of keeping the factory's forklifts and carts on schedule, maintained and repaired. Originally hired as a contract worker, the company took him on as a full-time employee. He said, "I was young and Black and didn't get invited to anything when he was management and was outcast from the get-go. Soon after his promotion, his new boss, a white man, started attending the meetings that Jones was excluded from. His new boss called him and 2 Black coworkers monkeys. He said once he walked away saying, "Oh, you lazy N." We looked at each other and said, "What?" He was fired. They didn't tell me why, only that I wasn't a good fit for Tesla, and I later found out it was for safety and attendance violations, which I never once had a write-up for. So there you have it. Racism all over the place, especially in the workplace. And at the NABWMT, we don't believe this is in good agreement with what our values are. We ask you to fight against this. You can look at some more of these at nabwmt.org, our website. We're on Facebook. Please subscribe, like us, and comment if you wish. Thanks for listening.